Can you hear me all right? Yes. Brilliant. Thank you for all being here this morning. I'm delighted to welcome our panel of casting directors, Daniel Edwards, Ix Jenkins, Rebecca Wright. We asked you, our members, to provide us with the questions for today's discussion, and whilst we won't unfortunately be able to get through the several hundred that were sent through to us, we will be opening up for a Q&A towards the end of the conversation, so please feel free to raise your hand, and we have Emily and Annie on the roving mics who will facilitate your question to our lovely panel here today. Right, so to start things off, to all of you, how did you start off in casting?
Are we going this way? I've done so many podcasts, I'm sure people have heard this boring story before, but I was an actor for a very long time, very long time, and then in 2004 I had enough after being an actor for 27 years, and started off as a child actor, and made the decision that I didn't want to act anymore for a multitude of reasons, all very positive. And I wanted to stay in the industry, but I didn't know where or which part of the industry I wanted to stay in, but I'd always had a fascination with casting, obviously being in hundreds of casting rooms as an actor, and also being a huge television in particular, television drama addict. And I'd always sort of fancied the idea of it, but actually, in all honesty, didn't really know what casting was. But then I was lucky enough to get a junior assistant position with the late, great Marilyn Johnson, who sadly passed away last year, or this year actually. And that's what kick-started my career in casting, and I've been an assistant, associate, and then went solo in 2014.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I fell into it. I have a degree in psychology, very useful. I went travelling, came back, thought, I want to be a music journalist, and that sounds cool. And a family friend of mine was working in the National Theatre, and she put me in touch with an agency, and I called up and went for an interview, and was like, yeah, sure, I can do the job, but whatever. Got offered the job. Didn't realise it was quite interesting. And then I grew up near Pinewood, and one of my friends was working as a runner at Warner Brothers at Pinewood, and Lucinda Syson was casting Troy at the time, and she needed a second assistant. And he gave her my number, and she called me up, and I went down and had a chat, and started a week later, and I was like, but I only assisted for 9 months before getting my own gig, so I did very high-end shows called Dream Team Mars.
I remember.
Quality.
And you had a role in that, did you not, as well? Was it Dream Team? Was it
I mean, Jane Doohan's a genius, but also she made TV shows for next to no money. So the entire production staff was in that show at some point. But it's great. I had 3.5 years of doing my own thing, and then went to be an associate with the late great Carrie Hilton and then Gary Davey, because I didn't really know anyone, because it's quite a little secular little show. And then Kelly and I started VHJ in 2010. We disbanded in 2016, and yeah, right.
doing your own thing? And Becca, same thing.
So I was lucky enough to, I got a job in production in TV and film as a runner, and then I moved my way up to a third AD, and then a second AD. And one of the jobs of the second AD is you cast the background artists. So I sort of thought, oh, yeah, I quite like this idea. And I thought I didn't want to work in production anymore, very long hours. So the last job I worked on as the second AD, I rang up the casting director and I said, oh, how do I get into casting? And we had a chat, and she happened to need an assistant, so I was very lucky, and I went and worked for her, and was just amazed that you suddenly got a lunch break having worked in production. And
that was at Live Cummings.
Well, no, that was actually with Joyce Galley, who doesn't cast anymore, and I worked with her, and then another casting director called Anne Fielden, who's sort of going way back. But that was in 1998, so I have been in casting now for, over 20 years. But then I did work with Di Carling for 10 years, who was an amazing casting director, this live teachers, loads of really good stuff. And she retired, and I set up on my own. And she said it was the only way to get me to set up on my own was to retire. So she was forcing me to become Rebecca Wright casting.
Fantastic that she made you do that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to our questions. How do you make the leap from theatre to screen when you mostly receive theatre auditions? If you have theatre credits, it seems you most likely are put up for theatre, so how do you make that switch from stage to screen?
Well, I said it's difficult, but have to remember that casting directors, with telly, film, we go to the theatre 2-3 times a week. We're always looking at theatre actors, thinking about whether they can come and do a TV job. And that's not just going to West End premieres, it's going to the Old Red Lion, it's going to see a whole, just as many actors, we just want to see as many actors as possible. So I suppose, I know, you know, sometimes it's hard if you think your CV has just got theatre credits on, but that doesn't preclude you from my from doing any telly.
Everyone gets logged in there somewhere, somehow, and sometimes in a little nudge. But you know, I remember being very excited when I got to cast an actor in a show that I'd seen, actually in the film, that I'd seen in a show when I first started, sort of 7 years previously, but always nothing quite aligned. And then I was like, this role perfect for. And the director like goes, that's the process. So you're in a theatre production, we see it, we might think you're fantastic. It might take us 7, 10, 20 years. I don't know.
Yeah, you're staying here.
Daniel, we were talking about this earlier, but how's casting changed from when you all started out?
When I first walked into Marilyn Johnston's office in Covent Garden, the IMAX had gone from being, you know, the curvy one to being the flat one, but they were about that thick. And iMovie had only just come into its infancy. This is just before Facebook or Twitter. I mean, it kind of sounds like I'm talking about 1946. So 2006-07, and so all the tapes were put on mini DV. So you would have to scroll, link it up to the Mac, and press forward, and then stop, start, stop, start. So the technology was much slower then. Now it's much. I mean, it's unrecognizable now. I mean, we can. It was much harder to work remotely then. Whereas now, for example, I'm on a project at the moment, and what I do is I edit the morning's tapes in the lunch break, so that the producer and the director can actually, if they want, watch the footage. I can do it so fast with the technology on Mac in particular, incredibly fast. So what's changed on the technical side is the speed. Now that does have a knock-on effect on actors, and it's interesting that you should say that, because it was a director that asked me that the other day, and it's because everything can happen more quickly. It means you get sides, sometimes last minute, because the lead-in time has become shorter and shorter and shorter. And also because they know we can get things up quicker and quicker, it does sometimes mean that actors have less time.
It must be great on the one hand that you can work through different time zones, but I guess it feels as if you're always working.
Always. Always working.
Becca, has much changed?
Oh gosh, well, since 1998, the faxing. Everything, you just got all the suggestions faxed through, you faxed your breakdown out to agents. And then we got all hard copies of photos, and we'd have them all strewn across the floor and sort of, you know, it's a, yes, and then it's yes. You know, I think the thing that I actually do miss is we don't have as many phone calls. I miss chatting to agents on the phone. It's so much, everything is done quickly, as Daniel was saying, and through email. I suppose I miss a bit of that. I still like the sort of old school agents and people who, you know, ring up. Yeah. But some cast directors don't like that.
A lot of agents do. They do love the chat. I love the chat. You do.
That's good. That's good. Do casting directors always try to bring in new people for every role they cast?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily every role, but on the whole, our job is to find new people. That is the point of what we do. We all get bored of seeing the same people, and there's often, like, you know, people think it's an elitist thing, and they say, why do you see the same people? Like, we've got to understand it's a business, and that's not necessarily our choice. That's because the people who finance the show feel like they have these people are watching, and therefore they make money. It's as simple as that. You've got to treat it as much as a business as much as it is an art. But then, you know, top one or two, and then you go everything else, and then it's about seeing new people. That's why we do what we do. You know, we don't want to just see the same old faces coming back and do the same old thing.
Yeah, the best part of our job is to bring in new people.
Yeah.
You can give someone a role in something, whether they're a new graduate or someone who just, you know, has come to acting late or whatever, or just it's just lovely. It's the best job.
What am I saying here? What would you like actors to know that they may not always be aware of in terms of the audition process for film and TV?
We want you to get the job.
Yes.
Because basically, you know, to put it bluntly, you come in, smash it, get the job, we're done. Thank you very much. Take money, run.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's also, don't forget that we're freelance, we are exactly the same as you. Our taste and our skill is why we get employed for a certain project. And it's important for us every time, I always kind of equate this, it's a really shit analogy, but you know when you make a playlist for a friend or you cook dinner for a group of friends, the nervousness that you are presenting something that means something to you, to a group of people, and you're hoping for their sort of positive response. And that sounds really trite, but every single person that we bring in is because we believe that you are good, we believe that you could do something with the part. If you come in and you're shit, that does reflect on us. The amount of times I get producers and directors going, really? Seriously? So you have to remember that, as Victor says, we want you to get the job. Those lists, those people that we bring in, from the top down to the bottom, from the bottom down to the top, are because we believe that there's something that you have to offer. And we are presenting that to sometimes to people who couldn't give a shit. And that can be quite hard. And I think a lot of actors forget that, of what is actually going on. I think a lot of actors think we're blocking you, but we're really, really not. We're absolutely championing and supporting you.
And sorry, just that sometimes you won't get a job not because you didn't smash the audition, it's because an exec producer's gone, oh, I actually think I just prefer that person. And it's just a, you know, it can be a sort of arbitrary, random thing. So if you have an audition, you know, just do it to the best of your ability and enjoy that.
Yeah,
and, you know, as much as you can.
How has Netflix and Amazon changed casting in the past 5 years? What has been the biggest change that you have seen this year? There's just 2 questions there. I think we probably touched on it earlier, the technology and the commitment to lots of series.
Yeah, I mean, content. I mean, as much as, you know, I think we forget that we're also all fans. We all sit down on the sofa and choose something to watch on Netflix or Amazon, etc., or the terrestrial channels in this country. And the fact that Netflix and Amazon and the 15,000 other platforms now, all of those stories, all of that work, all of that money that's being ploughed into, so actually it's a very, very positive thing for actors. It's terrifying in a way because we're now working on an American system, which we only ever had to do when it was projects that were being done in America, but now with Netflix and Amazon leading, it's an American style of casting, but in this country. And that is a slightly grey area, I know that, but it's going to take a little bit of a transitional period while we all understand, and it's linked to technology. It's astonishing how quickly it's happening.
Those that have taken a break and are self-represented.
What's that?
Use the skills if you've had a job, you're connected to the real world. So I think that's a great skill.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
to have.
It's a long game. Acting is a long game. I think that there are very few careers in the world. I think it'd be golf. You can get your break at any age. You can be 80 and get your break.
As a musical theatre professional, I can't get seen for plays, TV or film. What can be done about this, or is this not having a top-level agent?
Okay, I have to word myself carefully here. Victor knows it when I kick off. Yeah. There's two things here. I really ask actors to really begin to understand how agents work. And there's this sort of thing about, if I haven't got a top agent, I am useless, I'm rubbish. If I haven't got that, I'm not going to have the career that I want. And I think that you can have, it doesn't matter if you're in Independent and United or First Round. Yes, they are powerful, incredible agents, but there are also agents all the way, it's about the individual person within that agency that works for you. So I really beg you not to have that in the front of your mind, that if I don't have a top agent, I'm not getting seen for things. And that's not always the case. And then going into the musical theatre thing, I think it really has changed in terms of, I do understand that before, it goes back to the theatre thing, you've got a list of, in particular, musical theatre credits, because there's a certain style and an energy and a performance skill that comes with that I think a lot of musical theatre performers are worried that that casting directors are going to dismiss that. I don't. I see musical theatre performers all the time, and sometimes musical theatre performers forget to turn on the musical theatre performance. It is the difference between, and again another shit analogy coming up, is, you know, ballet and tap. It's both dance, but they're incredibly different disciplines, and performance levels for film and television are incredibly different to stage. And actually people, we get actors coming in and go, can you bring it down? Can you bring it right down? And they're still projecting, even though the camera is right here, and they don't quite understand that the microphone picks everything up. Good afternoon. It's about thinking. It's a wonderful casting director told me once, I think it was Marilyn Johnson, do nothing and then do even less than that at the screen. If I'm just talking and chatting away, it's how people talk in everyday life and remembering that. And I think some casting directors are very scared that musical theatre actors will come in. But I don't want musical theatre actors in the room to think that it's a closed shop and you're never going to get in that door. Because actually, I know that we have all seen musical theatre actors and cast musical theatre actors.
Free material yet. Should I start a show reel from scratch? What do you think about those ones that are made?
I'm very, the whole monologue to camera thing. It's, no. I think the thing with that is, there's so many film schools and short films that are being made that you can get, you know, find on various platforms whether you can sign up for. And I think try and get some short films done, because also with short films, there's normally no low pay, but there's weekends and you all have a particular time. That's good because you might get something out of it, because there's all a bunch of creative people trying to create something. And sometimes they're going to be shit, and sometimes they're going to be brilliant, and you probably don't know when you're filming it, but they might find they've got a connection with a great editor or lighting or whatever, and then you can create some content. I think doing a monologue, especially if it's a monologue from a show or film that we know. Some drama schools do the showcase pieces and it's from a film, and you sit there thinking, yeah, that film's really good, and that actor was really good in that performance. What the fuck is this? But I think it just takes it away from it. I think I understand that I can have something, but I would much rather not see it.
Yeah. But also, you know, many actor friends of mine and actors that I know are creating their own work. We're going back to the technical aspect of the industry. You can make a movie on your iPhone, and if you get a group of actors together, I have several friends that are doing this, writing. If any amongst you are good writers, write something brilliant. Look at Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Michaela Cole. This is how they're starting. Create something with a group of friends. Don't put it out there until you know 100% that it has some worth. You've got the camera equipment on your phone. You can hire a camera equipment. Create something interesting, exciting, contemporary, and that has meaning. And create something yourself. Make work for yourself. than doing a monologue from the history books to camera.
Yeah. What's the best way to prepare for a casting session when you've been told there's nothing to prepare?
Is that more sort of commercials? If that is the case, I mean, I've never done that, but I suppose you would still be able to look up a director, do a research on the director, the casting director. If the director, you could see their work, and they might have a particular style that might help you sort of, you know, hopefully help you do something in the room. But I think that is potentially more linked to a commercial, because I don't know that would ever happen in TV and film or theatre, absolutely.
Would you see an unrepresented actor? How important is it to have an agent? Touching on the agent.
Sorry, I bristle every time. I see unrepresented actors all the time. It's the myth, I think it's the myth, the old school myth that you're being restricted. They don't apply, because most casting directors that I know, we're looking all the time, and we're not, I think actors think, well, if I don't have an agent, then casting directors will think I'm shit. And that's just not the case. There are a multitude of different reasons. We work with drama schools all the time, and then you see it when drama schools are graduating, and you get that everybody's got represented. It's like a bum fight, and then you get 2 or 3 fantastic actors who just haven't been picked up. So it could be that. It could be that you've left an agent. It could be that after a year you struggled, because it's a saturated industry. But please, 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 if you are not represented, do not think that we are not looking. The amount of, when you send a breakdown out and it says Carer Spotlight, we're ringing and emailing Spotlight all the time to find out your contact details. So I beg you not to sort of listen to the old school myths that drunk actors say in pubs when they're really pissed off. They don't know who it is because I haven't got a top agent and I'm just not represented. And I'm just not because it's actually not sort of anger and bitterness at your best. You're just curled up with rage.
I think we are a little bit like horses, we're quite intuitive. If you sense that something's wrong, you know, and it does, it kind of radiates off you.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a degree in psychology.
The only thing I'd add to that is that if you haven't got an agent and you're on Spotlight, just make sure your details are really accurate, because if we do a search on Spotlight for someone who's Northern Irish, or just make sure that you have checked Northern Irish, Belfast, that you've just, so that you would come up in any search, that you put your age, because we're often searching age, you know, I think sometimes people leave the age off, but then you're not going to come up necessarily in the search. We're looking for a specific age bracket, but just make sure that, you know, all your details are as accurate as
And on that also to keep the CV up to date.
Yes, because that's your job. It's not your agent's job or your mother's job. It's your job to update its frontage. I don't think you realise how often we use Spotlight for shortlists. I've got shortlists going back years and years, and then sometimes we use IMDb, but also Spotlight if you've got a director that says, oh, what, you know, who's this, and we can literally ping off a short list, because we've got to get it over to the director really, really quickly, and you need to be on that all the time.
What's the best way to engage with casting directors directly when you have an active agent also working on your behalf?
Don't.
Well, you know, I think an email from time to time, you know, every 6 months, if you want to do it, or less. But I think you can just remind, that with the emails, just keep it so simple. With the best one in the world, you can give a shit about your life story. All we want to know is who you are, where you're based, this is what we're up to, this is my CV. Simple. If it's any longer than a paragraph, I'm not going to read it.
Yeah.
Because I've got hundreds of emails coming through, and also it's just information that I'm sure is all well and lovely, but I don't need to know. I need facts.
But I also added to that, though, I do quite like someone to write a personal email to me, that they're writing to me because they've seen a particular something I've cast, and they've said, and I just think that's, you know, someone's taken a bit more time rather than just generic.
Just say that, though. You get the emails coming through saying they've gone through your CV and picked that one from there, that one from there, that one from there.
No, it's one that's, you know, they really have, because yes, I did work on Silent Witness, but I don't currently work on Silent Witness, and I did just have an email saying, I love your work on this, or the latest series, or whatever it was, on Silent Witness. Why did you do it? Why did you do it?
Dear Victoria,
Yes, dear Danielle, dear Danielle, dear Miss Danielle. But also one thing that I have to say, never, ever, 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 ever send a round-robin email. I will delete that straight away. If you said, because sometimes people send round-robin emails and they don't even BCC it, they CCC it. So we see every single casting director and it's completely generic. How busy are you in your life that you can't send a tailor-made, it's a job application. We immediately, I'm going to reject it. And
you do it to a Batman.
You wouldn't, yeah, you wouldn't do it to any other profession. It's about you getting that work. It's exactly what Becca said. Tailor-make it, do your research. And if you're in doubt, and you're thinking, if in doubt, don't send it. And also, I have a thing is, if you are represented, make sure it is in conjunction with your agent. My agent, I've just been speaking to my agent, and she loves this, or he loves this, and I love that, and she suggested I write. Because what if you're not in conjunction, and then your agent has happened to have picked up the phone on those rare occasions, and we have this conversation, have a long conversation with you, and then suddenly I get an email from you, and that's happened several times, and it's like, hang on a second, are you two speaking? Do we have that relationship is incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, can I just quickly say, because about please don't write too often, because it does start to be sort of, if it's every 2-3 months, you remember, we do know you, we do, I know we don't always reply, but you honestly, you're there, and it starts being a bit like, oh, it's this person again, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And don't on Christmas Day. I get one every Christmas Day. I usually get between 1 and 6 emails. Technology, technology. Do you not think, you know, we're all tied with everything, with our iPads and our Macs and our PCs and our phones. Your emails are going to come through on our phones. My advice, any emails that you're sending out to casting directors, put it in draft on the weekend, and on Monday morning, ping them all out. Because otherwise I'm going to see it when I'm sitting in my pants on the sofa watching reality television. No, I don't actually watch reality. Ping, ping, ping. And I can't help because I'm a social media addict. I'm going to look on that thinking it's my Instagram. It's an email from somebody on a Sunday afternoon, and it's slightly, there's no reason why you can't. I do that now. I put things in draft and I send my emails out on Monday morning.
Because it's completely understandable that you're doing something else, but you would want to write them at the weekend because you've got time. But yeah.
Hold off. And we're more likely then to address and engage with that.
Yes.
Any advice on showrooms for performers who have English as a second language, wanting to break into British TV? What would your advice be to non-UK actors? Go with your accent and what makes you unique, or perfect the British accent. So there's quite a few questions going on.
You don't need to perfect the British accent. I mean, the great thing about the Netflixes and HBOs and all that kind of stuff is that there's such a global view now, and I think anything that's modern day, especially, not even then, you know, it's very normal for us to hear an accent, and actually, often the trick is that if we're jumping outside the box and we are thinking about casting someone outside of the UK for a role that's been written in English, the trick is that often that doesn't scan very well with an accent. It doesn't sound, if someone's written it purely for a British-speaking person, it doesn't actually sound that great coming out of somebody's
It doesn't scan in that.
It doesn't sound, so you need to be able to adapt that to how it would sound to you more naturally. But I think there are so many, you know, the Scandinavian, French, Eastern European, everyone. There are people on TV, you know, like Last Kingdom that we did for the Scandinavian Danish stuff. Actors, I've done a show called World of Fire, which is Polish, German, French. A lot of them are speaking their own language there. And yeah, in the split book, Barry Ashton is Dutch, you know, it's exotic, it's interesting for us.
Do you think social media has an impact for actors getting seen or employed, and do you believe a presence is important?
No.
I mean, I think for us, no, is the answer.
But
The rest, I think the commercial aspect, they do have that. That's commercials, of course, it's commercial. The word is commercial. So I can get it from that point of view, but in terms of a drama or TV, film, theatre world, no. unless it is a really, 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 really commercial prospect, which one is probably not going to be very good.
Go help myself. I suppose it doesn't mean that you can't sell yourself on social. I think yes, of course, because most of us are on some form of social media. I would also say, be careful how you respond to casting directors on Twitter, because, for example, if you send me a question on Twitter, I feel really guilty that I don't reply, but I don't reply, otherwise I'm going to get into a whole
huge conversation.
And then suddenly it's like a pack of wolves then I've opened up myself. I just think be very careful. I would rather receive an email, and I like following some actors, and I know that a lot of actors follow lots of casting directors, so I think social media presence is important because that's the way the world is going, but not in the context of...
Not in getting a job.
As casting directors, do you have around bringing actors in who are different from the script to what we then see on our screen?
That's absolutely responsibility, yeah. And something we do all the time about gender, ethnicity, ability. It's absolutely our job. Because often, when scripts are written, certain characters that are, for story reasons, have to be a certain way, but beyond that, we can kind of play with it.
I'm always going to say something, but I'm completely, no.
Okay. Where do you think diversity is lacking in the industry, and this is not just race?
In everything, but we're very aware of that. I'm very aware of that. I was very aware of that when I was an actor. And when I look back when I was an actor now, the changes are vast. As an actor, 95% of the roles I played were gay, usually loud and vulgar. So I've sort of cornered the market in that. Every time I was up for an audition, the amount of times I was told I wasn't black enough. Can you just do it a little bit more black? So what do you mean? Just like a little bit more. There's always somebody very posh and very white. Just a little bit more, black. It's the word urban had sort of become into the parlance in the industry. And I'm like, my mum's white and really posh, and I grew up in Harrow. And so I'm mortified, and I can say it now in a Q&A with humour, but the amount of times I was going, yeah man, and then I look back and I just wonder, part of my soul died. And now I think, I know that I would, in my casting room, I would never, or hope that I would never let anybody with any diverse background, not just race, never feel uncomfortable about their gender, their race, their sexuality, their ability. It has changed, but Trump is in the White House, and we're about to get Boris Johnson. So the world has changed beyond recognition from, can you be a bit more black, to going backwards. So as an industry, it sort of feels like we're in some weird years and years of Black Mirror.
But that said, I think it has opened up to become much more inclusive. It's part of that kind of, the politicians aren't getting the memo, because what you're all doing, enabling, is the reverse.
What we're trying to do, because actually we still come up against it. And we still come up against it, and I think for us to pretend that, yes, everything has moved forward and it's brilliant, but we've got a long way to go. And this sounds really depressing, and I don't mean it because it's a positive thing. I worry that I won't see the changes that need to be changed in my lifetime. I think by the time I retire from casting, it will be a completely different landscape within our industry, and a very, very positive one. But in order for it to be colourblind casting, able-blind casting, all of the things that we're trying as casting directors to change, I think that's a long way ahead, sadly. But it's also up to you as actors to make those changes, be the best actors that you can be across the board, regardless of all of the diversity. Oh, who's that? Some people that was me. I think we've got to, oh God, I'm going to sound like a real sort of like self-help person, but we've got to do it together. It's about being the best that you can be, so that we can go to producers and directors and go, look at this actor, regardless of the colour of their skin or their ability or their gender or their race or anything. Look how fucking great this actor is. We have to change it from both sides.
And that's something, it's the phrase I say quite a lot of my producing directors is just be the change. Simple.
Absolutely. When someone enters the audition, apart from character specifics, what is it that you're actually looking for in someone?
Someone
Talent.
someone who's engaged, who you think, oh, I'd really like to work with you. So, yeah.
It's as much about who you are as it is about your acting. The acting should be a given. If we've done our job properly, we've got you in the room, because okay, you may not get the part, you may not quite hit the beats that are needed or wanted or envisioned, but it's who you are. It's in that brief chat before, and it's in those few seconds while we're trying to get you out of the room so we can talk about you. And I think we forget that. And suddenly the fear and the need and the want and the drive makes you just become robotic and sort of like, and prickly, and sometimes rude, sometimes unprepared, all of the things that nerves play on us. And we're all human beings. I have crippling social anxiety. I'm very honest about that. I always have done. It absolutely, you wouldn't believe it because I'm mouthing off now. But I have to be like that, otherwise I'll go like that. So it's about, okay, how can I be in the room and just be yourself?
And if you're in the room, you don't have to be too obsequious. You don't have to be like, oh, thank you so much for seeing me. No, that's my job.
That's my job. That's your job.
That's your job. It's a transaction.
What type of person makes a good casting director?
Someone who's open to lots of different things. I think you need to be somebody who likes acting and actors, and I think somebody willing to look under every stone. You need that ability. Someone who's willing to give of their life 24/7, because we do. And somebody, it's very much, it's a vocation.
Yeah.
It isn't a whim, and it is something that you feel. I mean, I know that we do. We all three of us know each other very well, but I cast emotionally, and sometimes that doesn't work for some producers and directors. There must be much more like that. And I do have a passion for this industry. I have a passion for actors. I get blown away by fantastic actors. I get really manic, and like a 7-year-old, like that. And I get really, and anybody that is, anyone's out there that's been in the casting room with me, when you do a good take, I'm just like, oh yes! It goes back to what we were saying earlier on about, you're our taste when we bring you in the casting room and then you nail it. It's like, look, see, I told you. And it's that passion. There's nothing better for me than when you watch a performance on stage or on screen, or and it just stays with you and shapes you. And we get to do that all the time. I get to read in with, watch, listen, bring into the room with some of the most incredible actors I've ever met. People who are doing stuff like, thinking, how did you do that? How have you done that? And that is a joy, and it has to come from here. And I think I get very upset when actors think that we don't give a shit, because we're very, very passionate about what we do. We're very emotional about what we do, and it is a 7-day-a-week, 24 hours a day job when you're on a project. It genuinely is.
And we have to also, the other side of that is you have to be someone who is very strong in their convictions, because we have to sometimes fight our corner with producing directors, because they're idiots. Sometimes you get that, you feel passionate about an actor for a role, and they're not seeing it, or they've seen that actor doing one thing and they're pigeonholing them, and we've seen them on stage multiple times doing many, many different things. And you have to be prepared to fight sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's, as much as anything, when we're working on a show, my name's on that shit. So I want to make sure it's as I want it to be, and I always think, again, David's terrible analogies, but I always think casting is a little bit like a war, whereas you have to lose a few battles to win the whole thing. So you're going to go, okay, I feel really passionate about this character and this actor, but this one I will pitch later on,
Yeah.
and then making the producers and directors think that that's not happening. And also it's about people management. We've got to work out, sometimes some people are just really obnoxious, and you go in with your passion, your fight, and say, I love this person, and because you said that, they'll turn around and go, no, I love this person. So, okay, how can I make this work to make it you think that you made all the decisions? And you've got to work out that balance of things as well.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
I mean, the show that I've got coming on soon, where the lead actress was brilliant, but she came in quite late in the day. I held back onto the tape because I knew that if I sent it with the other ones, then it would be a blanket no. But because they said no to the ones they had said, I was like, oh, actually, this one's just come in as well. Boom, gets the job.
Yeah. Any advice for young actors who do not plan on going to drama school? What's the sort of routine for an actor that's no ambition for drama school training?
Not everyone's got it. I'm pretty sure Lee didn't go to drama school. I think she
I
must have.
don't think either.
No.
I think some of the greatest actors that we have in this country didn't go to drama school. Sometimes I think it's very personal.
Yeah.
It's completely personal to you. It's like I never had to. Well, I auditioned for drama school when I wanted to be taken seriously, having been a child actor, and I didn't get in anywhere. And then I actually realised, looking back, there's no way I could have had the discipline for 3 years. I would have been a bloody nightmare. They suffered me in the National Youth Theatre, and that was bad enough. So I think it's personal to you. It's what you feel you need. I think it's so important, even though you grow as actors all the time, that if I say to you, who are you as an actor? I can't bear it when actors go, I don't know. You have to know. You have to know yourself. You know if drama school is the right thing for you because you know what drama school is going to offer you. You have to have done the research. You have to ask yourself, okay, yeah, I want to do 3 more years of quite hardcore training because I feel it will lift my confidence, it will do this for me, it will do that for me, or actually I don't want to go down that route. I want to be brave enough, I trust myself to go down another route. Know yourself. Know what you like, know who you are, and know how the industry works. You have no excuse anymore. When I was an actor, back in the day, there was no internet. So you were literally just waiting for snippets of information.
And no mobile phones.
And no mobile phones. So yeah, you were literally, everyone would like convene at French's, which is now closed, in Warren Street, because that was the only place you could get information. And the Spotlight, because it had the notice board. But it's finding that information, knowing everything from what your playing age is. There's no excuse for you not to know that. Know yourself in an industry that is saturated, where the competition is so high, and know whether or not you feel drama school is something that would be beneficial emotionally and creatively for you.
Do I walk into the audition room as myself, then suddenly change into character when acting, or enter as my character?
We understand because sometimes becoming sometimes it's an accent and you're trying to get hold of the accent and you don't want to lose it, and we can find out, we can tell very early on if we should have the chat before or after, because it's easy to say hello and we know who you are and you answer with this odd accent, we're like, okay. So then we get on to the audition and then do a chat afterwards. But if you're going to do that, make sure you're damn good at the accent.
Oh my God.
It can be awkward. Some people want to have the chat with the accent because they feel they're getting into the accent. But wait a second. But especially when we know, and there's one audition years ago where an actor did come in with the accent and it was a fucking terrible version of the accent. And we're also going, oh, we know who you are, you're famously not from this country. It was just half an hour of absolute pain.
I mean, if you're coming in for, to play a serial killer, you don't, don't come in. You've got to get into the role, but yeah. I think it's more impressive to come in and go hi and then do it as opposed to sort of, and also because my biggest thing I tell drama students, just don't be too weird.
Yeah.
Don't be weird. That's a really, don't come into an audition and be weird.
Seriously don't, because don't forget something that again, it's about knowledge of how the industry that you are in works. Don't forget what's going on in the director's head and the producer's head. A lot of producer directors like the casting process because they can actually just switch off from everything else. But a director is thinking about every single department that's happening. And as the casting process goes on, that's cranking up for them. So their mind is really, really on multiple things. And sometimes that makes them really quite kind of cold and abrasive. And so if you are being weird and intense, it just makes things worse. It is surely in your box of tricks as actors to hone the skill, to be able to find a semblance of a character like that. Surely if you've done a little bit of work and a little bit of homework, you can work out how your brain navigates the text so that you can be yourself and chat. You know, even if you're a little bit of a quieter version, but as Becky quite rightly says, just don't be weird. That stays with them and you tend not to get the job.
Can you describe a bit about the relationship that you build with certain agents?
Well, I speak to so many different agents, and not just from, top agents. It's all the relationships, I think, are probably pretty important. And it is nice. That's why I think I miss the phone calls, because you do, and we go to the theatre with agents so that we can also get a relationship with them. And there are some that you do trust their opinion, and if they ring up and say, there's this actor I've got, I really think they're right, and you trust them, you are likely to get them in. So it does. So we do, I think our relationships with agents are important.
And it's a human thing. It's like some agents I'm sure can't stand me, and there are some agents I really can't stand. And there are some, but that's a personal thing. That's like you have chemistry with some people, and we all have mates. We have agent mates that you grew up being. They were agent assistants, you were a casting assistant, and we grew up together. And that's the same in any part of life. There are some people that you really, really get on with, and as Becca said, you trust their judgment and trust your judgment. But it's imperative. The casting director-agent relationship is key.
It's hand in glove, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you recommend having more than one showreel, i.e. a comedy one, a dramatic one, or in a native second language? So with if English isn't your first, would you recommend mixing it up if you're international?
I'm seeing it more and more actually on Spotlight, sort of comedy showreel, drama showreel. I was like, okay. I mean, I was like, no, I don't need it. It's just if you want to do that, I sort of don't mind.
I think if you were very, very much defined into genres, if you were building a career where you clearly were getting really very, very different. I mean, if you look at someone like Chris O'Dowd, for example, genius comedian, also a beautifully nuanced screen actor. So if you were sort of a young Chris O'Dowd that was getting work like that, I can sort of completely see how that might work. But it's whether or not on Spotlight they should all be there. I don't know whether you have it in your back pocket that if it's needed, your thing that you do that's slightly different, ready to send to the casting director if asked. So I suppose it doesn't hurt, but as long as it's
So if you've got the option to send to 2+, but if they're all in one, then actually you're going to be seen as more capable, more nuanced, because you're going to go from drama to comedy to drama to comedy. So actually putting them back to back on one showreel actually is probably more impressive.
Are there differences between screen castings in the US versus the UK? What do you recommend doing during the pilot season in the States?
So yes, the answer to that is yes. Largely, we're nice. We'll talk to you. In America, you're like, in, out. Come in, say lines, do not shake hands. Because they're scared of germs. And it's true. They will have a massive bottle of Purell. If they do shake a hand, they're like... And it is, I think in America it's very much, it's a beast, it's a system, and there is no chat, there's no formality. You turn up, they'll give everyone the same time, and we'll turn up, there'll be 10 other people there, and it is a little bit of a cattle call on all fronts. But if you know the process, that's okay, because that's what you're buying into, and LA is a very fun and interesting place, but as long as you take a pinch of salt, it's fine. And it's, those kind of jobs, pilot season, go in, forget about it. If you get it, great. If you don't worry about it. Because it is such a lottery. Whereas in the UK, we tend to have more considered choices. We tend, we'll spend time with you, we'll chat, we might go through it a few times. So I think it's we have a much more relaxed approach to it than the US. And that's because of constraints and it's a huge country, we've got so many people.
Are casting directors happy to deal with talent firsthand, or should the talent always go through the agent? We've kind of answered that one, so I'll move it on before we open up to questions. What are the features of actors' profiles that are most appealing to the eyes of casting directors? The photo, presumably? Good
photo. It's absolutely imperative. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about knowing yourself. You should be able to look at a photograph of yourself as an actor and judge it. I think it's very, you are, and probably anybody under the age of 30 in here, you're the selfie generation, so you have an understanding of your image. And I think it's understanding what a good photographer is and what you would do to find a good photographer. Look at the photographers, there's so many fantastic photographers out there. Look at maybe actors that look similar to you and find their work and say, okay, well they shoot my hair colour, my skin tone, they shoot that really, really well. So photograph is absolutely key. I think it's one aspect that hasn't changed, I think, since I've been in the industry in terms of actually don't go cheap. I'm not saying spend thousands of pounds at all, but don't go for, somebody that charges, 25 quid and just bashes them out and they're rubbish. You could have done them better on an iPhone. Find a good photographer that works with you, that works really well, understands what will take time with you, because your face, bam, it's the first thing that we're going to see before we even look. And we make those judgments as human beings as well. Don't forget that. I say this thing, sorry, it's another really shit analogy, it's actually a game I play, it's the escalator game, where just to remind yourself of how much we judge, and I always do this thing, it's a bit like Snog, Marry, Avoid. When you go up the escalators or coming down, you have to marry somebody by the time you get to the top, or the time you get to the bottom, who's going up the other side or coming down. Clearly not kids or but what it does, it sounds so ridiculous, but you're all going to do it, I know you're going to do it. You've got, however long it takes for the escalator going up or down, which is what usually like 70 seconds, a minute and a bit, or less than that, actually, depending which escalator. And you're literally going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and you start to panic, go, yes, no, I would, yes, I would, yes, no, no, I would, yes, no. Because we do it all the time. The point of my ridiculously facile story is that we make judgments as human beings. That we're looking or we're hearing. If you are sight impaired, you're hearing voices, you're seeing faces, you're making judgments, and that photograph is absolutely imperative. It's not a shallow thing, it's how it works for us. That was a really long-winded answer.
But and a photo that, yes, know yourself, so it's you. I mean, a photo, we're looking at, we've got a specific part to cast, and we've got all these thumbnail photos that we're just going, and then, something will engage you with the photo. There's a sort of something. But it will be because it's that particular part that you're looking for. So there are other photos, another time, there's another part, and the photo of you that didn't spring out that time will will the next time. Absolutely.
No hands in shot. No hands in shot. It's not voguing. It's not 1981. No backlit, soft focus, frou-frou la-la. No. Is that just my genuine it's the voguing.
Shall we ask questions to yours? I can't see any. Okay, questions. Can we grab? Okay, we've got lovely Emily coming down.
Would everyone mind if I do a selfie? Not selfie, a photograph this way for Instagram. Does everyone mind? What would be really good is if you could all hold up your phones. Or both. Do it. Phone. 3, 2, 1. One more. Excellent. Oh, I love it.
Shake hands.
Sarah.
He'll project, he's fine.
Hi, this question is for Daniel really. After having 27 years of acting and now being a casting director, from your experience of that, could you see yourself going back to acting, and what would be the things you've seen now as a casting director's hat on, would you say was missing you didn't necessarily have before?
I'd rather stick pins in my eyes and go back to acting. I'll try and be brief in the answer. Any kind of need or want that needs to be stated for acting, I get to read in with some of the, with actors every day. So any kind of acting sort of, I get to do that, so that makes me happy and that's enough for me. I think when I look back to my acting self, I realised I knew nothing. I knew nothing. And I now know everything as a casting director, and I should have known everything as an actor. And it's what I said earlier on about the way that the industry is now with technology and social media and the internet. The information is there for you, and I realised how lazy I was as an actor. I did really well and successful at various points, but I could have been something more had I been focused and done all the things that I now ask actors for. So, but then it was a slightly different time. So no, I wouldn't go back to acting, and B, I would have been more disciplined and more focused and ambitious.
But now I have more information because
Yeah, more information, yeah.
More questions? Any more questions? Any down the front there?
Hello, thank you, first of all. It's been a wonderful session. I've really got a lot from it. I just wanted to go back to the Spotlight CV because I'm going to go home and have a look at exactly what I've got on there. I'm returning to acting. My name's Susan Graham. I'm self-referring myself for things at the moment. I did work for 10 years as an actor a long time ago, but I haven't put that on my CV because I figured, would you be interested in that now? Because is it more about what I'm doing now and the things I've done recently?
You need to have put your career on there. It's like any CV should be a full CV.
I will go back and do that. Thank you very much indeed.
And we understand that people take
Take time off. Yeah.
other things happen, so yeah. But you can choose.
Hi guys. I just wanted to ask, I feel like I forgot my question now.
Excellent! Typical actor! Excellent!
What I wanted to ask is, where's sort of the, what's the deal with you guys requesting self-tapes and things like that? Is it more, I remember the question. So, when you're in an audition room, there's so many times where I've been in an audition room and the casting director gives the actor nothing to sort of work with. They might not even look at the actor. Do you guys, is there like a point to that, or is there...
Who the hell are you?
I've been to so many auditions where casting directors
Don't name anyone.
they don't give you a lot, and then whereas if I have the opportunity to do a self-tape, I'll do a much better audition because I'll do it with a mate who's an actor, and then I'll probably I've got jobs like that because I've been able to do it with a really good partner. So is that why, is there going to be more self-tapes?
We will give you everything.
Yeah.
Because, as Dan says, it's part of the fun of it is being able to read in with actors, and also part of what our job is to give the nuances and understand how it is to play with an actor as well. So we need to perform with you. And it's very important to gauge, and also the way that we modulate our voice and give the performance can also be important for you, and it's information. If you don't have time to talk about it much beforehand, how we're doing the lines can actually be very informative how you should be doing the lines. If you start here and we're here, you've got to try and match, or vice versa. And so it depends what works for you. Sometimes people find the room very uncomfortable. So if your self-tape is better, then you can always request a self-tape. And the good thing about self-tapes, I'm sure there will be questions about self-tapes, is I think as actors, people need to really get over the negativity about self-tapes. What self-tapes does for us and the industry is allow us to see more people. Pure and simple. If you've only got a few days to cast something, you can see 20, 30 people. If you do self-tapes, you can see hundreds. So self-tapes are your friends.
And some casting directors clearly not. That's life.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, because that's a real shame.
Last couple of questions. Oh,
me! Typical actor! Me! Yeah, do it.
Hi. Sorry, the lady behind you will come to you after.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, go on, go ahead.
Oh,
Which one are we going?
oh.
Hi, I'm just wondering, is it helpful to get work experience as a casting assistant, production assistant, in those kind of different areas in the industry in order to kind of gain more experience as an actor?
It depends what you want to do, not for your acting.
Not for acting.
No, but if you want to find out what other sides of the industry do, and it's quite nice to have a rounded idea of that, then yeah, if that's your interest, but it won't necessarily help with the acting side of things. And actually, it's when we get to, if we're applying, if we need assistants and someone's still very active in Spotlight and still an actor,
It's a
kind of
conflict
a
of
no-no.
interest.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to have someone who felt they were still wanting to act. I don't think that's the case with all casting directors, but I don't, actually we've been an actor and go, actually I don't want to do that, and now once you're casting, that's something.
Also, because don't forget there are loads of casting assistants, like actors, vying for work. And I get a little bit prickly when actors say, well, I'd just like to try it out and see what it has to be that it's something that you want to do, because there are casting assistants out of work, desperate for those few roles that there are. But yes, in theory, yes, you would learn a lot, but only if you want to do it.
Thank you so much.
Me!
Hi, Josephine JB. Thank you ever so much for being here today.
Okay, fine. So with photos for your Spotlight, is it better to have pictures of your personality, or maybe, or like the kind of person you are, or is it better to have pictures that lend themselves to the type of roles you want to play? Because I get a lot of different kind of feedback on that one.
I think it's very hard to show. I mean, that's where a good photographer comes in. But if you only think that you get drag at it, should you have a photograph of you looking like shit? Probably not. I think a really good photographer will capture. A good photographer is going to spend 2-3 hours with you in a photo studio, and the good ones do. They build up a rapport. You spend a great afternoon and morning, and they will capture elements. So now with digital, you've got a choice of like 150 photographs. Back in the day, it was contact sheets, and you only got 2 or 1. Oh God, I'm really showing my age. So I think that's dangerous territory to say, okay, well I'm only get to play this, so I have a photograph of me looking with a scar across my face. I think it needs to be something a good photograph will capture that for us. Maybe in the gallery, you could, but if it's a good one or it's a still from a film or a TV project, but to have a photograph taken with the roles that you think you play and what dressing for that personally, I don't know how Becca and Victor feel about that. I think that's dangerous territory. I look at that and that smacks of somebody who doesn't quite know what they're doing, and then I'm suddenly the red flag.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan on the gallery of having too many photos, sort of, here's me in a theatre production in a period costume, here's me. I sort of I can go, oh, I quite like that face. No, because I've thought of too long, and there are too many too many different ones that I just, that I just don't like.
Did we answer your question now?
I think for me, it's basically, not costume or anything like that. It's more like I'll project kind of like an emotion of a feeling towards a character that I would like to play and the kind of roles I would like to play. It's more like that, but I've had a lot of people say, well, just say that's a smiling picture, and then somebody else saying, well, if you do that, it would be to put forward just for comedy. So I'm like,
who is giving you that information? Don't listen to the mad voices. Don't listen to the mad voices. Know yourself. Know yourself. If in doubt, that's shit advice. It really is. I say this passionately, not sort of angrily. It's sort of that kind of advice is what fucks actors up. Is what fucks up your careers. Gets in your head. It's like, look, it's all there in front of you. That's insane.
And you're trying to second guess what we're looking for.
Never do that. Never do that. You'll stumble, and that's when your career goes down the toilet.
I should ignore the voices. Thank you.
Right, final question, because we asked now. Annie, you've got there's a lady here in the middle.
Thank you. You talked a little bit earlier about, if you work with your friends or if you write yourself, write and do that as a way of sort of getting work made and shown. A lot of people are really multi-talented and multi-hyphenate. How many hyphenates start to make you a bit nervous? So if someone says, I'm an actor, and a producer, and a singer, and I play football, and I do like all of, do you know what I mean? As people describe themselves, what's too much?
How much you want to impart? I mean, ultimately, if you're writing to us to get an acting gig, it doesn't matter about the stuff, so we don't need to know the stuff you do. You know, acting, singing, maybe, but other than that, we don't, you know, if you're applying for an acting job, we don't need to know that you're a producer.
Yeah.
So you can do what you can have as many hyphenates as you like in your life, but in terms of what you give us, just be relevant to the thing you're applying for.
Yeah, and if you are really good at football and we're looking for some female footballers that's got starred as in professional, very good at football, then you'll, yeah.
Careful of your star, and going back to the spotlight, careful of your stars. The stars are highly skilled
Yeah.
and also native accent. The amount of stars across every single accent, because you've misunderstood, and so you can't be from all of those places when there are 22 things. So it's things like that, getting that specific right. I have to just want to say that sometimes producers and directors can get quite prickly about actors that they know write, produce and direct. So I always keep that information, unless they know it and they're in the public domain, I don't tell producers and directors, because directors get terrified that you're going to direct them or be better than them.
Thank you. I think that's all we have time for. Thank you all for joining us today, and to our wonderful